that all those people who know most about climate change say that the actions of this government have made it more difficult to reach net zero. You can be the chairman of the Climate Change Committee for two sessions of 5 years. So I did that. And then the government asked me to go on. I'm not sure it's legal, but I did go on for a further 9 months because that was when they were supposed to be finding somebody new. And of course, it's not just the government, it's the Minister for Climate Change and the First Minister of Scotland, the First Minister of Wales, and the First Minister of the North of Ireland. Now, as there isn't a Northern Irish First Minister, it really is the other two, and they have to agree. They have a veto. So the government needs to give them a name or several names, depending on how they want to do it. And so far, they haven't, as we understand it, even approached the First Minister of Scotland or the First Minister of Wales. The whole idea of this is that you don't have a party political decision because the first ministers of the countries are likely to be of different political parties. So I was chosen by a Liberal Democrat in the coalition, the Scottish Nationalist First Minister of Scotland, a Labour First Minister of Wales, and a Protestant Unionist First Minister of the North of Ireland. So they chose somebody who was a Conservative and a Catholic. So it shows how independent the system is supposed to be.
There has been criticism. There's an article today in The Observer saying that part of this delay is because the government doesn't want to have a very close scrutiny on its green credentials, particularly during an election year. What do you make of this opinion?
Well, I can't say whether that's true or not. It's perfectly true that the Climate Change Committee was set up under the Climate Change Act, which was promoted by the Conservative Party. It was the Conservative Party in opposition that wrote it, that got all the other opposition parties on side, and then said to the government of the time, a Labour government, we want you to introduce it because this must be a non-party political agreement. So historically, the Conservative Party was totally committed to this. And of course, it was a Conservative government that demanded net zero by 2050. It was a Conservative government that put forward the toughest targets in the world in the COP26, which was the meeting, international meeting, which was held a couple of years ago in Glasgow. So the history is of a party which has been entirely on side. Unfortunately, in the last year, we've seen the government resile from some of those things. It's suggesting that we should get more and more gas and oil out of the North Sea, which means, of course, we can no longer get other people to move directly from where they are to renewables. We've lost our lead in the world. We've had the date for EV vehicles put back. We've had a series of other things. So you can understand why those who campaign are very concerned about this government, because the Climate Change Committee has had to say to them very toughly, and has said it since I ceased to be chairman, when the temporary chairman has put in place very clearly that the government has taken a number of measures which put us back so that we're not going to meet net zero in 2050 unless we make some very strong changes.
Lord Deben, we're heading into an election year. The government is going to choose its strong points in order to win the argument with the British electorate. Are they taking climate change seriously? Is the Prime Minister taking climate change seriously? Is it one of his top priorities? We saw an excoriating resignation letter from Lord Goldsmith when he stepped down. He's already lost another minister just in the new year because of the new drilling licenses given to the North Sea. Does the Prime Minister care about climate change, do you think?
Well, I think one just has to say that all those people who know most about climate change say that the actions of this government have made it more difficult to reach net zero. And that is in a year when much of the country has been underwater from floods which would never have happened if it hadn't been for climate change. And climate change will get worse every year. And unless we really fight against it, we will find that the world is just not livable in. And we, after all, are a country which is less damaged by climate change than many others. And the real trouble then for those on the extreme right who don't believe in climate change, their real trouble is that if the situation continues to get worse, then migration will become absolute because people won't be able to live in those countries. And if you can't live there, then you move. And once you start moving, and there are huge movements of population, the whole question of the boats will become very small compared with what will happen. So we've got to fight it, even if you're on the far right.
Do you think it will play a part in the election? Do you think climate change is strong enough an issue for the British public to sway their vote?
Well, it has to take a part in it because it's the biggest threat to our whole way of life that there is. And I shall certainly spend a great deal of my time trying to make it a part and getting people to understand that they need to look very carefully at whether their candidates are going to fight the right battle. There are candidates in all political parties who are totally committed. But I think whatever you're thinking of voting, you ought to ask yourself, is your candidate committed to helping Britain defend its future and the future not only of its children and grandchildren, but even of people as old as I am? We are going to have a life threatened by climate change unless we take urgent action.